All right, everybody. Good Thursday morning to you. September the 10th. I'm going to start out by reading the definition of refugee. A person who flees for refuge or safety, especially to a foreign country, as in a time of political upheaval, war, etc. Now, I'm going to tell you about some news I heard this morning. Number one being that apparently these refugees who are so scared for their life and the situation that of the country that they're leaving apparently go into Europe and other countries. They're living off of the citizens' dime there, refugee status, housing, clothing, food, medical, whatever they get. But yet, when it's time to holiday, as Europeans say, these refugees who were fleeing for their life go holiday back in the country that they fled from. So one would question, if you can go there on holiday and you feel safe, why in the hell are you fleeing to another country under a refugee status? Not only that, let's think about this. So you have the money to fly back to the country that you came from, but you're living on that country's citizens' taxpayer dime, right? Okay. Let's just let your mind wrap around that for a minute. Now, the other piece of news is that all these aid boxes that are being sent to the refugees, they just uncovered box after box after box of aid boxes going to refugees filled with shotguns and assault rifles. Well, now why would a refugee in a new country, a place they feel safe in, need a shotgun or an assault rifle? It's kind of odd, isn't it? Okay. But you and I as citizens, they question us having guns and protection. And from what I understand, the citizens of Europe aren't allowed to have those. But I guess, kind of like Hillary's email server, it'll kind of get wiped away as to who sent them, where it came from, and nothing will ever come of it. You'll never hear another thing about it, even if you hear about this on mainstream news, which you probably won't. You'll have to Google it, and you'll have to go to European sources to get this information. I doubt that our news will cover it at all. Now, here's a few things that I looked up this morning on the United Nations website under the UNHCR, which is the Refugee Resettlement Program under the UN. And I'm going to read, quite a bit here just to help y'all understand the mentality of the UN, and if many of you do, many of you don't. So the UNHCR, it continues to be greatly concerned by forcible returns or barriers placed by some countries preventing the entry of asylum seekers and refugees, as well as cases of abduction and extradition involving asylum seekers and the refugees. Now, I'm getting this directly from the UNHCR's website. All right, another point. Implementation of the regional housing program continues in Bosnia and other places in an attempt to provide sustainable housing for all 74,000 vulnerable refugees. Now, these are the refugees, the vulnerable refugees that I just talked about that are holidaying back in the country they fled, but they're vulnerable. The returnees and the IDPs, many of whom continue to reside in inadequate temporary accommodations or collective centers. Well, if you got money to go back and holiday in your country, in the country that you fled from, I don't think you should have any housing at all. If you have the feeling of safety enough to go holiday, you shouldn't be allowed re-entry into the country that you fled to, okay? Now, following national and regional initiatives, UNHCR and key stakeholders will continue to promote protection-sensitive asylum systems that are consistent with European and international standards and offer technical advice to governments. Adequate reception conditions, and procedures that are capable of responding to the specific needs of the asylum seekers, that's essential. Comments on national draft legislation, notably the transposition into national laws within the European Union of the asylum comparative analysis and engagement in judicial processes, will allow the UNHCR to contribute to setting legal standards at national and regional levels. So the UN is going to come in to other countries, and they're going to tell us how we are going to deal with these refugees. It's not going to be up to our government, although our government would hand over everything we have to them. So the UN really doesn't have to help with that. Our government does it bad enough, and so do many others that are involved in this already. They're handing over every citizen's hard-earned money to these people. And I'll get to that in a little bit. So you've got the UNHCR that's coming into countries. They're going to be talking about legislature that is going to deal with how to politically correct handle these refugees. Even though 22 out of the 48 countries contribute to the UNHCR's resettlement efforts in some capacity, the number of resettlement places in the region remains limited, with quotas and reception and integration capacity varying widely. Special attention will be devoted to the resettlement and humanitarian admission of Syrian refugees. In Eastern Europe, the UNHCR will work in close partnership with governments, humanitarian actors, and other stakeholders on addressing protracted internal displacement situations. These activities will include assisting in the revision of relevant national legislation. Got that? Provision of legal aid and limited direct assistance to particular vulnerable people of concern. A special focus will be placed on supporting local integration, self-reliance, and voluntary returns for IDPs. Now, I want to, this last bit from their website. This is the money that we're talking about. This is money that countries are giving to the UNHCR. Their budget, and this is just for Europe, people, okay? Just for Europe. In 2015 is set up in US dollars $480 million. And that represents a 2.5-fold increase compared to 5 years ago. So just in Europe, $480 million will go to helping these refugees who are fleeing for their lives. But yet, hey, they still feel safe enough to vacation, holiday, whatever you want to call it, back to the country that they were so scared of being at to start with. This is not a refugee situation, people. These people are not fleeing for their lives. They're fleeing to overcome other countries with their population and their ways. This is called takeover. It's not called refugee. This is happening for a reason. And you all liberal, kumbaya, singing individuals can take your crap somewhere else, okay? When an individual is fleeing for their life, They don't think about bringing their high-priced cell phones, their designer clothes, and they damn sure don't sit and bitch about I've seen the videos of the tents, the camps that these refugees get put into. They look pretty damn good to me. It's a 5-star hotel in the refugee status community, as far as I can see. But they're bitching. It's not good enough. Look, we have to live 8 people, 8 men to a tent. Well, the tent's like a 3-bedroom house. It's ridiculous, but the standards are too low. We need more. We need y'all to help us as they talk on their cell phone. Wow. Designer clothes. But they're refugees. They had to run in the middle of the night with only the clothes on their backs. People, I hope today that you do some research on this. I hope that you share the information that you find. And I hope that people start to wake up around the world, not just in America, not just in Europe, but around the world. This is a crisis situation. The only problem is it's not a crisis for the refugees. It's a crisis for the citizens that live in these countries that have to take up the burden of caring for them. They are not fleeing for their lives. They're fleeing so they can spread their population all over the world. Citizens that are living in these countries are living far worse than the refugees that are coming in. Do your research. Share your facts. Help wake up some people, because we still have a lot of people sleeping. Love to you all. God bless America. God bless the world. United we stand, shoulder to shoulder.